I'm meteorologist Justin Storm, one of the few in the country certified in using the LRC, or the Lezak Recurring Cycle. And to put this very simple, the LRC is a groundbreaking new way of forecasting long range and ultra long range. Basically, to put this very, very simple, a unique weather pattern sets up in the upper atmosphere every fall, and that weather pattern is a unique number of days long, and it will cycle over and over again through the following year until a new weather pattern sets up that following fall. Now, this might be very hard to believe on right away, but I will show you proof, and throughout this year I will put out several forecast predictions, and you hold my feet to the fire. You let me know how well we do, and we're starting that again today. Have several other forecasts already out there for the year ahead, but we're putting together a new forecast for the middle of March that could be a little sleeper setup down in the southern plains. I don't think this will be a monster outbreak, but it has potential to produce some decent area of some severe weather. But let's deal with what's happening right now. And this is the current outlook for Texas on the 29th, or this coming up Wednesday, tomorrow technically from when we're recording this, with a marginal risk in central Texas. That then upgrades into a slight risk over into Louisiana. So we're in the third LRC cycle right now. So this setup has already happened 2 times before. So if we were to go back and take a look at this, we will have likely have seen this before. Now quickly, let's take a look at what that setup is looking like right now and zoom up to the 500 millibar layer. Now this is the setup, is this low off of California right here. Now this is just kind of spinning, doing its own thing, but when it gets sucked into the main flow, we start to get a little bit of momentum on that, and that is the main trigger for those strong to severe storms. Now, keeping an eye on this, we will have likely seen a pattern similar to this where we have that storm. Now, let's go back and take a look at these weather patterns. Here we are back in November. This would be the second cycle, or technically the first cycle of this year's LRC. Now, when this came through the first time, here's our low, and it's sitting down in the southwest, and it just kind of sits there before eventually gets pulled into the main flow. Man, that looks very similar, just a little further to the north. Now that makes sense, as the jet stream is a bit weaker and the storm track is further to the north in November than it is in January when we have all this cold air. But man, does that not look very, very similar? There it is right there, and it gets pulled in, and we'll see more storms starting to form off with some ridging up towards Alaska. That is very similar to what's going on right here. Here's our storm system coming in, it gets pulled off, and we kind of get that ridging up towards Alaska with another storm building off down to the southwest or off the coast of California. Alright, so now let's take a look at the second cycle. This brings us up into December. Now, things in December were a little goofy, and I'm not going to get into the weeds on it, but our cycles slowed down just a little bit. Here it comes in, we're on the 23rd of December. And as we drop down, here's our storm right here, and it pulls right down through Texas, and it rips out of here. So a very quick moving little trough that moves through. And actually, it's fairly hard to see it. It's right here. This is the storm system right here. And we kind of get this secondary wave right behind it. So technically, these are 2 separate storms, but this is the main storm in that cycle. Now, based on these 2 setups that just occurred back in November and December from cycle 1 to cycle 2, we had some outlooks that were issued, and here we are in that first one for November the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th. That setup actually looks almost identical to what this is, just to a slightly lesser degree. Now, there it was in cycle 1, and again, things were a little goofy in cycle 2, but we have almost the same spot, seeing a very similar outlook. Now we're getting it into the third cycle, and we have another outlook in generally the same area with an upper level flow that is nearly identical to what it was back in cycle 1, and showing some similarities for the second cycle and now in the third cycle. So now let's take a look and see what happens after this storm system. So here we are looking at this back in cycle 1 on the 9th. What happens after this is we get a secondary system that tracks through the central U.S. while another storm system digs down off the Pacific coast down towards Mexico and rips back up around the 18th of November. So that's about 9 to 10 days after that first outlook that we just took a look at. Here we are in the second cycle. Again, here's our storm. So we should look, see, there's our secondary system right here. And as we go further off, we should get another storm that dips down. There it is right there, almost about the same time period, about 9 to 10 days later after that cycle. So if we're looking here, after this system rips through, and let's say it exits here on the 31st, 10 days from now, we should see another storm system coming in. So let's see if the model is picking up on another storm system coming in behind that. Again, we had a minor wave, which is up there moving through, and we're about 5 days in. There's that first system about 5 days after. And then 10 days, we get our next storm system right there coming in at about 11 days here on the model, but it is trying to portray that there is a wave. Now we're looking way far out on these models, and they're so riddled with errors, but it's pointing in the right direction, that it's at least picking up on what we already know is going to be coming through as another storm system, and this could also produce a severe weather setup. And this was the outlook from that system that we looked at right here on the 17th, 18th of February. It also produced a slight risk throughout those areas. So we should be watching for that here in about 10 days, technically about 12 days from now. We'll likely see another risk for severe weather throughout Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana being the target area, and I don't have the outlook for this in the second cycle. The maps are being all sorts of goofy. I tried to retrieve it, and I just couldn't quite find it. So here's our prediction. So we should see something similar to this, probably playing out in a little bit of a larger area as the jet stream really ramps up and severe weather starts to take off in spring. And again, we'll see something looking like this, fairly similar, where we get this storm system down in the southwest that lifts up into the central U.S., likely producing a chance for severe weather from Nebraska and Missouri down to Louisiana and Texas, all in the middle of March. And then what happens 10 days after that? Well, we probably will see another risk for severe weather in a very similar area on the 28th or so. So let's revisit that here in about 6 weeks when we're in March, and let's see what happens with this. If you're interested in the LRC, drop some comments down below. Let me know what you think about it, and if you're at all interested in getting into some of this information, let me know. We can get in contact. We can figure something out. But there's your prediction for the middle of March. There are other videos where I have shown evidence of the LRC at work with these past major winter storms that hit the South and Gulf Coast, as well as a couple other setups that are likely going to produce some major severe weather outbreaks as we head into April. Should be a fun year based on the pattern. Not a lot of these, but a couple of really good setups are going to happen this spring. So let me know what you think about it down there in the comments.